When I was in primary school, I had a friend whose father enjoyed deep sea angling. And once I was with the family on a deep sea angling holiday. And as fate would have it, my line was taken by a tuna. And that tuna had a great day because he dove right into what seemed as though the bottom of the ocean. And it took me about 45 minutes to get this fish into the boat. And I was heaving and pulling this fish against currents, against my body, because everything started aching and cramping because I wasn't used to pulling a tuna from the depths. Now, what I remember most about that day was the amount of force I had to exert to get this fish into the boat. In our lives, we do a lot of pulling. We pull a lot of things into our life. We pull to keep things in our life and to pull them into our lives. This pulling requires a lot of energy, focus, intention. That's maybe why Jesus, in teaching us to pray, went into the area when he said, "Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." When I hear or read that phrase, "on earth as it is in heaven," I get the picture of pulling something closer from where heaven is to where I am. And in this pulling of heaven closer to our reality, I believe Jesus was showing us what that might mean. In Scripture, it says, "We demolish the arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought that make it obedient to Christ." When the writer in 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5 writes this, he is creating a contrast between taking something captive and making something obedient. Taking what we want to pull into our lives, taking it captive, and making that desire obedient to who Christ is. So when Jesus says, "Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven," he's also saying there's some things in our lives that need to be taken captive and need to be made obedient to Christ, not to our own whims, but to Christ. So today, this week, you might want to spend time thinking about the pulling you're doing, pulling in certain things like maybe a friendship, maybe a promotion, maybe pain you're constantly pulling towards yourself. And these things might not be taken captive and in obedience to who Christ is. In a practical way, you might want to take a sheet of paper and draw a stick figure representing yourself. And then from this stick figure, just draw some lines out connected to round bubbles or whatever you want. And in the round bubble, you can write something that you feel you are pulling and holding. And then you might have a few bubbles and lines extending from your stick man. And take that picture into your prayer time and ask God to reveal which of these things that you're constantly pulling is really taken captive and is really obedient to Christ. My hope is that in that exercise, there might be some revelation from God into the constant pulling that you might be caught up in, and that at the end of the day, the kingdom of heaven would come to earth, as Jesus suggested in his prayer.